Hey there, loyal yogis, and welcome to today's yoga session. Today's session is going to be all about hip opening. I'm going to talk to you about 3 different types of hip openers and demonstrate how to do them properly. I actually had a student the other day ask me about frog pose, and it's not a pose that's very frequently practiced or even taught. So rightfully so, you know, not very many people explain it. So I'm going to show you how to do frog pose and then 2 other hip openers. So you're going to need a block and you're going to need a blanket by your mat where you practice, okay? So we're going to save the block for the next pose. You're going to need a blanket for frog. So what you're going to do is you're going to come onto your hands and knees. Look to see that your knees are under your hips. Okay, and you're going to walk your hands forward. You're going to use your hands here. Okay, and then the knee that's on the blanket, make sure that you're practicing on like a smooth surface. So the knee that's on the blanket, you're slowly going to slide that leg, that knee out to the side. Yeah, you're not opening the leg up. You're not doing anything funky with the leg. You're keeping your calf and your foot and your heel all in one line, right? So the leg opens, the knee opens, and you go down as far as you can, as is comfortable for you. My hips are fairly open in this range of motion, so for me it's fairly easy to hold this for a long period of time without too much discomfort. If you feel any discomfort, you can always use the hands and kind of pull the knee in a little bit to back off. And then hold where is comfortable for you. And you want to pull your hips back just slightly so you feel the adductor muscles, which are in your groin area. You're going to feel a nice deep stretch there. So to come out of the pose, be very mindful. Use the hands to walk your way back up. And then you're going to pull the belly in to scoop the knee back towards your original position. So that's frog pose. Okay, from the side it would look something like this. I'm pulling my hips back. And you would walk yourself back in. So that's frog. The next pose I want to show you is just a hip flexor stretch. So it's basically like crescent pose, but on your knee. So if you have sensitive knees, you want to pad your mat. So you're going to come onto your right knee, walk your left heel forward. So if you feel a little unstable, just walk your left foot out to the left a little more, and that broadens your base, your foundation. So you have more stability and you're not going to feel like you're going to fall over. So you take your hands to your hips. Now if you remember back to the other day, the sagittal plane, in which movement appears to the viewer as happening from front to back, right? So you're viewing me from the side. So what's going to happen is I'm going to start to bend my left knee. I start to feel a stretch in my hip flexor, my right hip flexor. And then there's a very good chance that my low back is going to curve, right? This is happening in the sagittal plane. So to fix this, just pull the tailbone back towards your heel, and you'll feel a lift in this hip flexor, and you'll feel a lift up through your your left hip off of your thigh. Right? So the deeper you go, the more you have to think about the tailbone pulling towards your heel. Right? Depending on how flexible your hip flexors are, is depending. You can always, you know, intensify or back off. So this pose is not even-sided like frog pose. Frog pose stretches both sides evenly at the same time. So make sure you do both sides. So we're going to take the other side. Take a nice inhale, and then to bend the knee. Make sure it tracks over your second and third toe. I'm starting to feel stretch in my left hip flexor, and I'm pulling my tailbone back so that there's no curve in my low spine. And then to come out of it, just straighten the leg. And you would hold these poses for about 10 breaths, maybe 15 breaths, depending on your level of strength and your level of flexibility. And the last pose I want to show you is pigeon. So for pigeon, you're going to need the block. And I'm going to unfold my mat real quick. So for pigeon, I like to get into pigeon from downward facing dog. So I'm going to inhale my right leg up. Exhale, I'm going to pull it through in between my hands. And then I'm slowly going to ease myself into pigeon. Now for me, this is fairly simple. I have open hips, but I am the minority. So you're going to need your block most likely. This hip, for most people, is up like this. So you're going to take the block and put it underneath that bottom hip, and that's going to raise the floor. It's going to lift your hips, and it'll just make the pose more accessible for you. So you're stretching, in this pose, you're stretching your gluteus maximus, your butt, and your glute medius. And then you're going to take your hands, and as you ease into the stretch, which might take 5 breaths, it might take 10 breaths, you're just going to walk your hands forward. You'll feel your hips open up. And then you'll stay here for about a minute or so. Now again, this is not an even stretch on both sides, so you're going to have to come out of it and take the other side. So I'm just going to show you the other side real quick on this side so you can see better. You're going to inhale the left leg. This is what it would look like without the block. As you exhale, you take the foot in between the hands. You're going to drop it down. And the tendency is for this to happen. See how my hips want to sway this way? Right? You want to lift your hips up and square them off as much as you can. So you're pulling that bent knee, that bent hip of the front leg, the front hip back. And then you're going to fall forward. And you'll hold it here for as long as is appropriate for your level of flexibility and strength. Now to come out of the pose, very important, you're going to tuck your back toes underneath regardless of whether you're on the block or not. You're going to tuck the back toes under, you're going to straighten your back knee, use your hands, you're going to push your hands into the ground and use your belly to pull that leg back into down dog. That's how I like to practice pigeon. So those are just 3 of the various hip openers that are available to us through yoga. And hopefully you'll like one of them. Maybe you'll like all 3 of them. And yeah, stay tuned for my next Floga session. It should be coming up very soon.